Hello, everybody, and welcome to City Skylines 2. I am not going to spend too much time going into how excited I am about the game. I know everyone's been looking forward to it for a long time, and I think we should just get started. And since we're starting a brand new series that starts with picking a new map, I have sort of scouted out some of these, and at least right now, I don't love how the mountains look. Just in terms of the textures, there's kind of a little awkward, I think. So I think I've settled on going with the Lakeland map theme, not map theme, map just in general. We're gonna select that. Our city name is Wokingham, I guess. I don't know. Well, you guys have to tell me. Give me some suggestions in the comments. We're gonna play with natural disasters on. We're playing with the North American theme. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into it. But yeah, let's start game and yeah, getting ready for a new series. All right, here we are in game, and I'll start off, I guess, by zooming out and getting a little bit of a look around. I like how this map has a lot of these little islands and waterways and stuff. I think it'll give us a lot of interesting things to think about in terms of how the city grows. I also like how we start off with kind of not a highway, just sort of a main road with this bridge here. I am going to start off by deleting this initial road layout because I want to get something that looks a little bit more natural. And yeah, I guess before I get into the road layout, let's talk about how we're going to sort of set up the city, and with an eye towards what the long term um, layout is going to be. I like the idea of having it kind of centered, maybe on this peninsula here, with some of these islands, having bridges kind of going all across this area. Obviously, that's outside of the buildable area right now, and we will end up having to start in this square. So let's see. Let's look at the first considerations we're going to have to make are where we're going to put different industrial zones, residential zones, etc. As you can see, the wind is blowing kind of to the northwest. So I think it's going to be a good idea to put our industrial area, at least for the time being, right over here, and a residential and commercial sort of town center of sorts in this kind of flat area here between these kind of groups of trees. I would like to do a little bit of terraforming to kind of sort of frame the city a little bit. I think it makes sense to have maybe a little bit of a hill here and then maybe another one here where these trees are. Um, yeah, and then once I have that done, I'll be able to get into kind of laying out some roads. I'm going to jump into a time lapse now as I kind of fiddle around with different ideas. And yeah, I'll give a little bit more backstory on the series and kind of my ideas for where we go from here. All right, so now I am in the time lapse, obviously, and as I mentioned, I'm going to start off by doing some terraforming. And the way I'm doing this, I'm just using the first a level tool, going to a higher elevation part of the map, and kind of just, as I said, accentuating these hills here. So we're kind of going to end up building a little bit in a little bit of a valley, which I think is just a little more interesting. I'm also going to place down a bunch of trees. This is another new feature in CS2 that has divided opinion. The natural state is for the trees to be really small when you plant them and they grow over time, which I think is kind of interesting. I mean, depending on the series, it might be better to have a little more creative freedom in terms of detailing and placing down fully grown trees. But now I think it's an interesting thing. I'm not super opposed to it. The landscaping tools overall are, I mean, obviously pretty similar, kind of the same options. The terrain mesh is a little bit more, or it's a little bit finer, I guess is the correct word, and that makes it a little bit easier to realistically terraform things. And I think with a little more practice, I'll have um, ability to do cooler things with the terraforming tools. And yeah, this is kind of just my first stab at it. And overall, I'm happy with how the tools function and how I was able to use them. And now I'm going to start by doing this road layout. I will talk about it a little bit more in when I'm back in game. But the basic philosophy here is just to kind of define our general areas, what's going to go where. We're going to have the industrial area, as I mentioned, kind of up and to the right, and then have some kind of row houses in the central sort of flat section, and then have a little bit of a varied road layout as we go farther. I guess it would be to the west, and yeah, overall, I'm happy with how. I mean, the new road building tools are really interesting. They're going to be really cool to sort of play around with and figure out how they work. I'm a big fan. I've used it here, um, where you can upgrade a road that's to a narrower width, but you can choose like which side it goes to. I did that when I upgraded the standard 2-lane road to the one, or I guess it's the two-way alley, but it only takes up half the space. And yeah, I think that's a really cool feature. I like how much more flexibility there is with connecting roads to different parts of existing roads, whether that be a different lane or whatnot. But yeah, overall, definitely getting the feel of the game, and I'm gonna head back to live speed and talk about what I've done so far. Now we are back in the um, real time, I guess. As you can see, I've done a little bit of planning just to get kind of a little bit of a lay of the land. I've sort of accentuated these hills, as I was saying, kind of to frame the city, and I've got a little, at least the start of a road network here. I think one thing I do want to mention is these alleyways. This is very much done with the intention of these being row houses, kind of all in this area. Um, and I guess this sort of brings me to a larger point about the series. I said mentioned that we were going to be building a North American inspired city, and the main reason for that, honestly, is just practical. Since, as you can see, the zoning really only works with grids, at least, um, it only works well with grids. Whenever you have like strange angles or curves, the zoning grid breaks the same as it was in the base game in City Skylines 1. And because of that, we're going to need to have a lot of gridded areas, which means we're going to have, it would have been very difficult to create like a European style city center with tons of really narrow streets and weird angles and stuff. So, for really only that reason, we're going to be doing North American City. I think it's going to end up working out really well. And yeah, in terms of the functions of these areas, I guess we should probably just get into zoning things out. For the time being, I am going to zone all of this as low density residential. I'll talk about this more later on in the series. I'm going to be really intentional about how I zone things. Right now, I'm just going to click pause or click play, rather. Um, I'm going to be really intentional, as I was saying, about how I zone, doing like making sure to vary the kind of the shapes of the lots, um, and stuff like that. And I guess before I get into any kind of philosophical rambling, we should probably get ourselves a water pump. Types of things I didn't have to deal with with all my mods back in the day, but this is this is how it goes. City Skylines 2. We have to play the game the right way. Um, but yeah, I'm going to. This is another interesting thing, I guess, is these transformer stations, which basically means we can just import electricity from the outside world via the high voltage power lines, and that saves us from having to actually spend money on, or at least do the upfront investment for a electricity source. I'm just gonna chuck this sewage outlet down here, hopefully out of the way. Yeah, that should be good, I think. maybe not. I'm going to try and sort out some of these technical things, and then I will be right back. I think we should have all of our necessary services for this early part of the game. Anyway, I was talking about how we're going to just kind of zone things kind of roughly right at the beginning here, just for the sake of um, getting up the development tree and building out the city. And what I'm going to end up doing is being very intentional about, I can kind of demonstrate, I guess, over here. Um, with zoning, if I zone just a big like chunk like this, it'll get kind of just any kind of shapes of buildings. There won't be much. It'll be kind of very disordered. But what I'll be able to do is I'll be able to select very specific shapes of buildings, and you're not going to see anything pop up here. But like for instance, with this area, which is going to be all row houses, right now you can see these are just kind of a bunch of different size lots. They're all oriented different directions. What I'm going to do is have um, kind of this is kind of a little bit of a gripe I have with the game. It's very much focused on the sort of single family, low density residential development, and there's a lot of this kind of like the way that the game is designed, it kind of incentivizes you to build really big sprawling cities, and I'm going to try to fight against that by zoning out, like only zoning really small houses once we get a little bit more money and development points to play with. And hopefully that should help us with a sense of scale, and it'll make the city more dense. It'll make it seem bigger than it actually is. And yeah, that's kind of the main thing I'm going to be playing with early on. Let's speed things up so we get some houses in here. And yeah, I think with that kind of mindset, with that strategy, I think we'll be able to create a pretty cool city. We'll be able to take advantage of all of the cool dynamics while not making a super boring, sprawling mess of a city. Um, and yeah, as I'm recording this, there's been a little bit more progress on the sort of modding front with Paradox releasing some updates and some there's the news that there's some new packs coming out, and I think with that sort of at least a long term, I think the game will really get to a place where we can create cities that we actually want to see, and we won't have to, obviously we won't have to sort of build within the confines of the vanilla game. And I think once that happens, it'll be really cool. For the time being, we're gonna have to be a little bit creative. And as you can see, there's a lot more detail on these buildings than there would have been in like the base game, City Skylines 1. I think there's definitely some room for improvement here, just in terms of the graphics and stuff. Again, this probably has something to do here with the graphic settings that I'm using. But yeah, I think in terms of the look of the game, definitely very much improved over the City Skylines 1 base game, but still I think a lot of room for improvement with just in terms of textures and decals and stuff like that. That's the type of thing that I would use a lot to improve the look of my city, and I think that's something we can really I think that's something we can expect is going to improve in the future. As you can see, this is kind of a I will say they did a very good job of depicting the very boring standard American low-rise residential and commercial buildings. Um, but yeah, this is kind of an example of like this building here is built up to the street, and that I think is kind of more the type of building I would want to see in the city. And I think we can probably try a little bit of playing around with the zoning and just deleting buildings we don't like. Like, yeah, this one is a little bit better. Um, and yeah, kind of getting rid of buildings that have kind of, like just like their gas stations, big parking lots in the front. Um, hopefully once we do more, the more of that we do, the more the city's going to start to really take shape. I'm going to jump back into the time lapse, wait for the city to grow. We hit our first milestone, and then we can talk through a little bit some of the more interesting things and see what direction we can take the city, at least early on. And all right, there we are, Tiny Village. The very first milestone has been unlocked. This gives us, I'm actually honestly not sure exactly what these icons mean, so let's go to the progression panel. All right, we got unlocked a bunch of new things, the most exciting of which is definitely the medium density row housing, and then we also get a few expansion permits and a couple new city services, healthcare, garbage, that stuff. One thing I am interested to see, I'll mention this now, is this lot tool. I'm sure you guys saw in the various like promotional videos and stuff. I think that is going to do a lot for, like, in terms of once the modding really gets up and going. I think that's going to be an interesting tool that people will be able to use. And yeah, anyway, enough rambling. Let's get into let's figure out first. I guess we need to add just the healthcare. Just plop a, let's see, a little bit of lag. Let's plop a clinic down there. Hopefully that should be plenty of capacity for the time being anyway. And then we can just plop a landfill. We could just stick it here, I guess. Yeah, that seems like it's going to work. And yeah, this is a really cool just concept. It's something I know that people have kind of, I'm just going to do kind of a random shape there. But yeah, this I think unlocks a lot of possibilities in terms of what we can do in the future. Let's slow things down now. But yeah, now we have the North American medium density row housing. That's the thing that we're going to be focusing on the most, I would say. Let's check out we got a couple new roads we can build. Just, that's not very interesting, at least for right now. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to do a little bit of an experiment, and I'm just going to zone one of these blocks as row housing. I'll just get rid of these here. And this is kind of, let's see, getting all kinds of XP. Speed things up again. So yeah, as you can see here, all right, this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. We've got these 4, like 1x4 houses, but then we also have this house being built here, which is, I mean, this obviously is not how things would get built in the real world. You'd have just 2 rows in a line, and yeah, I mean that's we've all seen that. But then yeah, with this we get, these 2 here as 1x6 here. That doesn't make any sense. What we're gonna want to do, we'll let that play out. And what I'm going to do is, pause for a second. For this block, we're going to do a little bit, we're going to plan things out a little bit more realistically. Okay, so in contrast to this, where we have basically a big mess, what we're going to do here, I'm going to first bring out the road tool just so we can see how this is set up. So we have, what is this, 1, 2, 3, 8 by 11, it looks like. What I want to do is I want to have some like rectangular looking blocks. And the way I'm going to do that, obviously I have these alleyways here. what I'm going to do is make, I guess what we probably should do is upgrade this to an alleyway like that. We'll make this an alleyway to alleyway over here. And what this is going to do, we're going to make an alleyway right down the middle here. And again, this is something in City Skylines 1, it wasn't really an option with just the way the zoning grid worked. It was a lot more limited. With this is what I'm hoping is going to work. We're going to start out like this. We're going to wait for things to start getting built here, these 1x2 houses, and I'm going to let things just kind of play out here for a second, and yeah, we'll check back in a bit, and hopefully this will work out the way I'm planning for it to. All right, so now most of these buildings anyway have grown in, and I can give you guys a little bit of a better understanding of what I'm talking about in terms of the concept that I'm going for here. As you can see over here, I mean, this doesn't look terrible. I mean, the buildings, the textures are pretty good. There's some good details going on, but it just doesn't look super realistic. You have these weird, like this would never be built with like the backyard over here, and we wouldn't be built this way. And what we want to do is build something a little bit more like this, where these buildings are all the same size. They have some variations in the colors and textures and whatnot, but they're kind of all consistent. They're all lined up like this. And what this road layout allows me to do, I can get into this now, is build sort of a mirror image of these blocks on either side like this. And what I'm hoping this is going to do, and this is something we can play with just as the series progresses with different layouts and different dimensions of things. As you can see, the 1x6, like this building here, 6 Florence Street, is a little bit unnecessarily long, I think. But you got some of these buildings that are 1x4, and those look pretty good. And we can, I think, use these different dimensions in different areas to kind of play with the scale, play with the different densities. And once these buildings here grow in, I think we'll have a good idea of what kind of high density, but not necessarily high-rise buildings will look like in the game. And yeah, I'm excited to see how this little block plays out. I think it's going to look really good, and then I can move on to rezoning a lot of these other buildings here. As you can see, I also plop down the cemetery over here, and yeah, I think once the sort of game plan is going to be to get these blocks here looking a lot more realistic, and then move on to doing something interesting here, some sort of commercial center, and then yeah, we're gonna have these industrial buildings sort of just as a placeholder. We'll move those somewhere else down the line, probably on kind of this mainland area. But yeah, I'm excited with how the different features are sort of coming together, how the game is looking, and yeah, let's see how this block turns out, and then we can get into rezoning a little bit more of the city. All right, here we are. We've got a full block of row housing, kind of as I was imagining it. And yeah, I think this looks really good. We've got these open spots on the corners, which I think if I now go in and just zone these as, I think we'll get the same shape of building, and I think that'll look good. But yeah, now I guess all that we really need to do is, well, first of all, you can see on the demand bars down here, we have a lot of demand for low density residential still. I am going to go into the economy tab. I'm going to see, okay. What we're going to end up doing is once we unlock, we're going to use taxation to basically just tax the low density housing a lot, and then hopefully that will reduce the demand for it, and we can start getting some more interesting looking houses. Um, but yeah, I think while we're waiting for, I think what we're going to need to do is probably zone out some more commercial so that we can just get things moving a little bit more. We need more. I guess honestly, what we probably do need to do, I'm just going to take this big area here and zone out a bunch more single family residential just to get the population boosted up a little bit. Um, this is very much going to be a placeholder, and hopefully this will boost our population up, allow us to unlock the economy panel, and what's going on here? This guy, we'll just delete that. Thumbs down for me. My apologies. Yeah, this area is very much not finalized. While we're waiting for that to come in, let's do a little bit more brainstorming of what things are gonna look like on this side of the city. As I said sort of earlier on in the episode, these islands I think are going to be a really interesting backdrop for some really tall buildings, some cool infrastructure projects. With the idea of setting up for that, I think I'm going to drag out I'm going to speed things up also, but I'm going to drag out a road here, which is going to kind of form a major artery kind of going down this peninsula eventually. Obviously, we haven't unlocked this land, but I think this is going to be a good long-term plan. Let's just kind of stick this out and kind of mirror the coastline here a little bit. Might as well make this 135, 135 again. Rock Musician Mansion. All right. All right, so this road is going to you can kind of see here, it's going to be kind of zigzagging its way through the city. And I think we can kind of branch things off from this road. A little bit of lag there. My apologies. And yeah, this will kind of form, once we get kind of everything unlocked, we'll have the ability to start making that look a little bit more interesting, a little bit more to work with. Waiting for a hearse, it's never a good spot to be in. All right, so now we're getting a little bit more demand for row housing. I'm going to go through and rezone at least most of these blocks here in the same kind of style that I did with these. Yeah, I'll probably speed up the footage just so we get through it a little bit faster. Yeah. All right, here we are at the next milestone, Small Village. You can also see that we have arrived at nighttime, which is interesting. And in the time lapse, I guess you probably saw a little bit of the progression through the like the sunset and all that, which looks nice. Um, I am going to, at least for the purposes of um, just recording, I think I'm going to turn off. Well, I'm certainly going to attempt to. I'm not sure where. Gameplay, day-night visuals. All right. Yeah, I do really like the all of that stuff, all like the sunsets and all those visuals. I think they do look really nice. Um, in terms of just recording videos, I'm probably just gonna turn them off just so it's easier for you guys to see what I'm doing. But yeah, I'll probably do some cinematics and cool screenshots and stuff. Um, anyway, you can see this is really starting to take shape here. One thing I wanted to talk about, you may have noticed I did these ones alongside this hillside. I made them have they're 1x3 lot size, so they're probably going to be a little bit longer. A little bit. Let's see, some of these have come in here. They've got a little more of a backyard, which I think is interesting. I'll probably go through and do a little bit of detailing when that sort of is an option. Probably add, more like natural kind of like foliage and stuff here, kind of. But I mean, this is kind of the idea that I was touching on when I was setting up the map. I wanted to have these kind of hillsides to kind of define where the edges of the city were, so we can get kind of effects like this. Anyway, you can see right here the sort of side-by-side comparison of the row housing and the low-density housing. You can see how much different it looks and how much more efficient it is, both in-game and in real life. But yeah, I think this is, I'm feeling good about kind of how the city is set up. I'm going to press pause for the time being. We've unlocked a bunch of really cool new things here. Education, city, we got the taxation unlocked. However, this video is starting to run a little bit long, so I'm probably going to leave it there and then pick up in the next episode, where we'll go into the kind of economy panel. We'll keep expanding the city. I guess one thing we can look at before I go is the expansion permits. We have, I think, 7 to work with here. Yeah, I think in the next episode we will probably, I don't know, we've got a couple of different options. We might go, I'll probably maybe do like these 2 here, and then maybe do some on the mainland. I would like to relocate this industrial area over to the mainland, maybe connect that kind of directly to the highway. Just kind of get it out of, I want to have this space here for more residential stuff. We can do maybe something down the line with like maybe some like refurbished warehouses and stuff in this area, kind of as an ode to where we put it initially. But I think, at least for the gameplay, I think it makes more sense to put it over on the mainland. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, if you enjoyed seeing me kind of bumble about trying to figure out how the game works, appreciate if you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and all that. For those of you who want to see more City Skylines 1 content, I might try to get into Vestinland and maybe do like a wrap-up video and like kind of, tie some loose ends and all that. So yeah, stay tuned for that in the future. But yeah, again, thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.